John Joyce.
On my MA itself, it was about presence through absence. My work was very much concerned with presence through absence. This latest work is still connected with that, but it's a move forward, I feel. I feel I'd explored the previous medium as far as I could. So now, having moved into bronze, it's still about presence through absence, but trying to show that absence of how we're mass producing now and producing the everyday and taking over from nature. So it's that connection, so we're wiping out species, we're through this mass production, through the use of resource and everything, burning up everything, you know. So eventually we're having a direct impact, particularly in this case, on bird wildlife. You know, hedgerows are being cut back, and it's all about that counterplay between the everyday mass-produced object, as in the bag, juxtaposed to the nature element, the natural element, the bird in this case. But also adding on from that, there's that hopefully a dynamic between the two. So you've got the weight of the bird, which in bronze is quite heavy, considerably heavy, and the idea, the emphasis was to make the base as light as possible to lift or elevate the bird. So it was also about taking the material as far as I could. So the intervention here, what I'm trying to achieve is that almost, it's about the disruptive image or vision. So it's almost to play a trompe l'oeil, if you like, you know, the French for to deceive the eye. So initially you see this object and you might not completely get the relevance immediately, but you walk off and then maybe revisit and think, oh, actually, yes, I see where he, you know, he's trying to go with this work. So it's about that, you know, that play on that, as well as the counterbalance between the object, the weight of the object as well, which has a play in it, because being bronze, it weighs a considerable amount, but the idea is to elevate that so you get that trompe l'oeil effect there as well. And that. So whereas my previous work to this, recent work, was about displaying the interior presence through absence theme, it's now much wider. It's become much wider. It's about opening that up to the exterior and trying to get the viewer to look at the wider picture, you know, the ecological picture where we're impacting on nature rather than the interior space. Much more about that wider, you know, discussion, moving into the outdoors and what we're doing to the environment as a whole as opposed to the interior. Primarily the reason for me concentrating on sculpture as opposed to 2D or any other form of medium is that I don't really see in 2D. I much prefer, I see in a 3D, in the round, and it answers a lot of problems with regard to perspective. It sorts it out for you if you do something in 3D. Plus, it's just, for me, to express myself, this is the best possible medium. I feel I can give so much more to it than if I was doing something, you know, a poster or something that had text. So it's not about the written word, it's about trying to emphasize and put into the work itself so that people can deduce from what I'm trying to say in the work rather than the written word or text or 2D or painting. So on this particular sculpture, I started right from the very beginning. I did sketches, small thumbnail sketches, so that I could visualize to a degree what it was I wanted to. I still didn't have a final piece in mind, but I certainly knew what the subject matter was going to be about with the nature element and the bird. So after drawing it out, I moved on to making a model in clay on an armature. So I made the armature in the workshops out of metal so that would give it enough structure to support the clay. Then I laid the clay up, started building on that, and then put the detail into that, and then actually molded in rubber the bird itself, and cast that out in wax, and then through the process of ceramic shell, transferred that into bronze medium. But then I had to consider how I was going to mount that on what sort of base. So taking the paper bag as the base created horrendous technical problems. I couldn't mould the paper bag, so I had to do what they term a direct burnout on that. So I took the bag as it's in its paper form, coated it in wax, and then went through the same procedure as on the bird, but instead of moulding it, I just cast that paper bag, because to try and emulate those creases and folds, it's doable, but it was easier to do it in the one-off. So every time I try and reproduce this, I can reproduce the bird exactly, but the bag is a one-off every time because it's that direct burnout.